I always like to visualize a friend that I'm talking to or my ideal client. I have that person in my head when I'm creating content. I visualize them as if I'm talking directly to them. And then it makes the content easier for me to write because it's a little bit more conversational and it flows easier.
Welcome to the Agents of Change, the podcast experience you've been waiting for your entire marketing career. Search, social, mobile, AI, blockchain, and neuromarketing. These are the Agents of Change, and so are you. Digital marketing success awaits, and your transformation begins now.
Welcome to another episode of the Agents of Change Digital Marketing Podcast, the podcast that's all about helping you reach and engage more of your ideal customers online. My name is Rich Brooks. I'm your host. This is episode 536, powered by the Agents of Change Digital Marketing Conference, coming your way right here in Portland, Maine on October 9th and 10th, 2024. More on that at the end of the show. For reasons I'll talk about in next week's episode, I'm starting to take our social media marketing more seriously these days. As you know, social media marketing can be a huge time suck, and it can be difficult to measure your ROI, your return on investment. That's why I'm excited for this week's guest, who is an expert in simplifying social media so you can get more done in less time and get back to the other 1,000 fires that you need to put out. Before we get to all that, I'm back from 2 weeks of travel. I had a great time. I started down in Boston speaking at Event Camp, which is put on by Triple C. The topic was AI in marketing, and I had quite a few people come up to me afterwards looking to have me give a similar presentation to their group, and even one person was looking for me to train their group in how to use AI marketing or AI for marketing. It sounded like a great opportunity and something I'm looking forward to. After Boston, I traveled down to Allentown, Pennsylvania, cue the Billy Joel song, to see my daughter Maya graduate from Muhlenberg College with a perfect 4.0 GPA. Hard to believe that she's my progeny. And then I was back home only long enough to do a load of laundry, repack my bags, and head up to Bar Harbor, Maine, Bahaba, where you can find Acadia National Park. We, and by we I mean Flight New Media, we have a client up there that owns 6 of Bar Harbor's best resorts. And for the past couple of years, they've invited the entire team up to really get to know their properties and the people that work there. We were there just before Memorial Day and starting to see the tipping point between Bar Harbor being this sleepy little New England village to an all-out tourist magnet. Beyond just meeting with our clients, we got a chance to go on a Puffin and Lighthouse tour and just play mini golf, and it was just a great all-around bonding experience for the whole crew, especially since so many of us work only part-time in the office. It's always great to get those experiences where we're actually face-to-face and doing things together. If you're headed to Bar Harbor this summer, reach out to me for recommendations on where to stay, where to eat, and where you can have really nice bike rides. Okay, enough of that. Let's dive into this week's convo around simplifying your social media. My next guest is a social media agency owner dedicated to simplifying the social media process. With a background in communication, she has been working within the social media landscape for over 10 years. She works diligently to develop robust social media strategies that are aligned with individual brands, where authenticity leads the way. She's a self-proclaimed social media nerd, obsessed with how the world communicates. As an avid lover of the outdoors, she wholeheartedly stands by her belief that social media shouldn't take over your life. Today, we're going to talk about how to simplify your content systems and social media with Autumn Wilson. Autumn, welcome to the show.
Yay, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's start with just kind of talking about how you got started running a social media agency.
It was kind of an accident, Rich, to be totally honest. It's kind of one of those maybe divine intervention. The universe has another plan for you than maybe you had decided yourself. That's kind of, I feel like this my entire life story. But no, social media was always kind of a central part of any job that I'd had. I did the usual, go to university, do a post-grad, try to get a 9 to 5, blah, 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 all of that sort of fun stuff. But social media always ended up being part of the job that I was at. So I was in radio for a while, then I worked at the Chamber of Commerce and then a nonprofit. And I just started diving into social media and absolutely loved it. and then became a statistic in 2020 when I decided to leave my 9 to 5 and start a career or start my own business. And which I think majority of people did in 2020 because, when the world's falling apart, why not try something new? And I went into it honestly saying, I'm never going to manage people's social media accounts for them because it's always better when they do it themselves. So I'm not going to even offer that service. So I started my business just as a consultant and very quickly realized that while it is true, social media content tends to be better when it's done by someone who is very well known, like knows the business really well. The reality is they just don't have the time. Sometimes the best person to do the content just doesn't have the brain capacity or the time to do it. So then I started rolling that service in, and then just kind of through networking and marketing and all this sort of stuff, just kept adding more and more clients. And then before I knew it, I had to onboard another social media manager and was in agency mode. So that's kind of where we're at now. We're still a small team, just myself and one other social media manager, but we're mighty and loving it.
What do you feel the pain point is for most companies when it comes to creating their social media content? Because you said it's always best if somebody internally or at least immersed in the brand is doing the social media content, but it's not always so simple. What's the pain point there?
Time. Just that's the biggest thing that I hear from everyone is I just don't have the time. There's so many pieces to not only creating an efficient or effective social media strategy, but to carry it out and then to stay on top of all of the things that keep changing. There's algorithm updates and different trends and how do I know what to post and what time and what's working and tracking everything. I mean, it's insane. And it's only getting more and more complicated as we get further down this line of digital marketing. And I think I've noticed at least a lot of business owners are becoming more and more savvy in digital marketing and understanding that, I have to have all of these pieces figured out if I want this to be effective, if I want to actually get leads from all of these places. And it really comes down to time. Every business owner is juggling 1,000,001 tasks in a day. And so usually social media tends to take a back seat or it gets offloaded to an intern because it's kind of like, it's just putting a few posts together. It's just throwing up a picture and a caption. It's no big deal. But once you realize how important it is to your overall marketing strategy, then it all of a sudden it can get really overwhelming and complicated. And just trying to figure out the time to pull it all together and carry it out effectively I get it. I do my own social media content isn't exactly the best. I save all the good stuff for my clients. So it can get really, really frustrating when you just don't have the time to pull it all together. That's the biggest pain point I see.
So when people are struggling, and I hear it as well as you do, what are some of the tactics? What are some of the ways that you help your clients kind of overcome that and actually get good quality, engaging content out there onto social media?
Yeah, so I found a big part that really helps in the beginning is setting up the systems that support and fit into the way that the team works. So I've been able to work with a bunch of different types of clients in different industries and different teams. Some people are just one-person teams. Some businesses have a VA. Other businesses have an entire marketing team. So I've been able to work with a couple of different teams, which has really helped me understand that the system that supports the content that's going out is essential. Because when you have that system that works within your own team, then it just makes everything move a lot faster. So then you can have everything plugged in terms of, okay, what emails are going out? When's the podcast episode going out? When's the blog going out? Everything is housed in one spot. So then you can say, okay, great, I'm going to take that, repurpose it into a social media post. And it's all in one system. So you don't have to go searching around for 1,000,000 different things, or you have your key themes or your key topics that you talk about all the time that you keep coming back to in your social media posts. So when they're all in one place, it's a simple grab, copy, rejig it to put a new spin on it, and then put it all together. And then everything's in one place. It's collaborative, so you can add your team members into it. Other people can see what's going on. You can add different editors or keep it to yourself. Like when you have a system that supports that, then you have all of your other content feeding into one place. Then all of a sudden that time to sit down and create something is like, oh yeah, here, I have these 5 different things that I can pull from and create some posts for the next week. great, done. It just makes it that much faster.
And what are some of the tools that you're using for this?
I use mine. The tool of choice for me is Airtable. I love it because it's free. And there are paid versions, of course. So you're limited with the free one, but I use the free version for myself and all of my clients and absolutely love it. And then Asana is another really popular one and it works really well. Trello, again, very similar. So those kinds of systems that are simple, that are straightforward. And whenever I sit down to coach a client through it, I always talk about, okay, let's figure out first how your brain works. How do you usually like to disseminate information? How do you like to sort information out? And then we look at, okay, this is what Trello looks like. This is what Asana looks like. This is what Airtable looks like. What speaks to you? What makes the most sense for how your brain works? And then having those systems, and I like using a little bit more of a well-known system because then you can integrate it with other things. So for Airtable, for example, I can set up a Zap. So then whenever I create an email, it automatically saves it into my Airtable base or vice versa. I can have that so I can connect the different systems that I'm using and bring it all together. And so that's why I like Airtable to do that. And again, Asana, the same thing. You can just have everything in one place. You can have different bases, different areas, different calendars, and keep linking to different things, right? So you can have your key topics that you talk about, and then you can have all of your subsequent content that builds off of that. And it's like, okay, this is the email that went out. And then here's the social media posts that we've done because of it. Or here's the blog post or the podcast episode. And here are all the different social media posts that we can do for it. And so it kind of all links it together. So those are the three main systems that I found people like the most. Airtable, Asana, and Trello are usually the ones that people tend to gravitate towards because they're just simple and straightforward.
And how far in advance are you scheduling posts? Is this something where at the beginning, I know with my own social media manager, she'll usually come to me halfway through the month and she's laid out what she wants to talk about for the following month. What's your process for that?
It really depends on the brand. So there's a couple brands a couple of our clients are a little bit more last minute, but I still always schedule right now. I'm usually about a week and a half in advance minimum I try to do. And then I always leave room for space when things come up, So, and that's fine, things will come up or an idea will spark, right? So next week, for example, one of my clients is in the teaching industry. And so it's Teacher Appreciation Week coming up. So we've put together, the idea kind of sparked last minute, like, oh, okay, instead of just doing the generic thing we normally do, let's switch it up and do something a little bit different, right? And so we've got different ideas. So it's like, I had things planned out, but now we're thinking, okay, we can level it up a little bit more. So the ideas kind of come and now we're kind of shifting things around. So we leave room for that kind of creativity and different things to come up for sure. But at minimum, I'm usually about a week and a half out. Some clients, I can go a month out. It really just depends on the brand and what they have going on. I try to do it as far in advance as I can. For my own content, I'm about a week out because that just helps me stay a little bit more current too. So things aren't too outdated.
Sure. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I like the idea of you have a pulse. So if anybody comes to your social media profile, they can see that you're actually alive and existing.
Yeah.
But then when something comes, and I told you this right before we got on the air, today was our 27th anniversary of being in business for Flight New Media. I walk in and my team had put together a bunch of balloons, the big 27. So of course we had to take pictures of that and then post that to social media. It's that little bit extra that adds that personality.
Exactly.
You mentioned the Teacher Appreciation Day or whatever it was called. I'm just wondering, as you look forward, are you using a tool that kind of suggests different types of content that might be relevant for different industries? Or how do you get ideas or know what's coming up in the coming weeks or months that you want to leverage into your social media plan?
Yeah, it's all part of the onboarding process I do with my clients. And this is what I would do in a social media strategy with anyone is I'll look at, and I just do my own research. I haven't figured out a system that plugs it in automatically. I'm sure it exists out there, but I just kind of do my own research and just do a quick Google search. And there's, awareness days and holidays and things like that. There's different websites like that all over the place. And you can find some really obscure ones if you want to have fun with it. So then I just create a calendar and I do it for the entire year. I say, okay, in January, these are all the things that come up. So at the beginning of each month, then we know what we're going to have coming up that month. So we tend to kind of keep it light like that. But then, it gets approved by the team. So everybody knows, okay, this is what's going on. These are the ones that are important to our audience, maybe not even necessarily to us, but this is what's important to our audience. So I make that list for the full year in advance. It's ready and it's there to go to every single month when we go to create content.
All right. And you're working with so many different types of clients in different industries. I'm just wondering, have you seen that certain types of posts tend to get more engagement than other ones? And whether it's, ones that are focused on employees, ones that are focused on the work that's being done, ones that are focused on holidays. Is there a trend that you see that you're like, we need to make sure that we're doing these kind of posts?
Yeah, I would say, and it feeds into the content ideas as well, right? Because it's nice to have those kind of awareness days because they're almost like freebie content, right? It's just an easy post. I find that those don't tend to do as well unless you put a personal spin on it. And that's what I will say across the board in all of the brands that we work with. The more personal the content, the better. And I know that gets tricky when you're talking about a brand that maybe sells a product, if it's maybe a retail store, or, we've got a company that sells software. So it's really hard to be personal when you're talking about those things. But you can't forget that there are people behind the brand, and no different than walking into a retail store and wanting to see someone's smiling face, wanting to support you. We want a similar experience when we're interacting with that brand online as well, right? So sharing some behind the scenes things. That's why things like stories are so fun and effective, because you can have a little bit more fun and freedom with what you share there. So we always try to put a personal spin on it. So for example, like that Teacher Appreciation Week, I've had everybody on the team for that brand, I've had them all record a really short video saying, hey, we appreciate you. Hey, you're doing a great job. Really quick clips. So it's every single person on the team. So you get to see their face. And then we're just going to clip them all together. And then it's going to be a nice 30-second reel of these really fun, nice, uplifting, encouraging messages, right? So that just takes it to a whole other level rather than just a stagnant graphic that says, Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, we appreciate you. No matter how beautifully written that caption is going to be, that graphic is not going to capture a lot of attention typically. It depends on the audience, but typically it won't. Versus having a video with people's faces on it, smiling and saying, thank you, you're doing great, we love you, we appreciate you. It just takes it to a whole new level. So we always try to put people in the pictures as much as we can and really get the people of the brand involved in the content as much as we can to really give that personal feel, because it always, 9 times out of 10, almost 100% of the time, performs way better than anything else we could create.
So, and I guess maybe you've kind of touched upon this, but I'm thinking about one of the first words you used was authentic. And sometimes it feels like if we're planning things out a week or a month in advance, and we just are making sure that we're putting out some content, that it's not feeling authentic. So what are some of the tactics that we can use to make sure that our social media messaging is authentic to the audience we're trying to reach?
I always come at it from the perspective of, if you are in the right headspace when you're creating that content and that you want to serve with each post that you create, that's kind of the first step, right? With authenticity. And when I talk about authentic content, it's just having a good intention behind it and saying it's not just about a sales post or just like, oh, we have a sale, so we need to put this graphic out that says this is a sale that's coming up. It's about switching the conversation to say, we have a sale coming up. Why does my audience need this product, service so badly? How will it serve them? How will it make their life better? And that's the position that we create the content from, to say, we are coming here to help you, to serve you, to make your life better, or to entertain you, or whatever it is. It's about the feeling behind it versus just the sale or the lead. It's like, that's obviously the intention. We want to get some leads. Absolutely. But when you come at it from a place of, we genuinely know that this is going to serve people, then it just you're just in a little bit of a different headspace when you go to create that content. So you write it in a little bit of a different way, and you think a little bit more creatively, and again, a little bit more personally. If you actually have a person in mind of who you're speaking to. I always like to visualize a friend that I'm talking to, or my ideal client. I have that person in my head when I'm creating content. I visualize them as if I'm talking directly to them. And then it makes the content easier for me to write because it's a little bit more conversational and it flows easier. And then it comes across. I've had people say to me like, wow, your stuff sounds exactly like you. I'm like, well, thank you. That's because I'm actually writing it. That's good to know. So, it's when you come at it from that perspective, it's a lot easier to be authentic when you just start actually remembering that there are people behind that you are trying to get in touch with. And I find when you come at it with that heart, then the rest kind of follows, right? There's all the, of course, checking the boxes and getting the keywords and doing all the algorithm things and that sort of thing for sure. But I think that absolute first step just needs to come from a place of just like genuinely wanting to serve someone with this content we're putting out.
All right. You mentioned stories earlier, and stories and reels are obviously very hot, very, very powerful forms of communication, which I absolutely hate and never make any time for. So, what advice do you have for me if I wanted to start creating more stories or more reels, but yet I feel completely overwhelmed? How can you break it down for me?
So the first thing I do is just create the system. I'd sit down and we'd have a conversation about like, okay, what's stopping you? What are the roadblocks here? Normally it's like, I don't have time. Okay, sure, maybe, but there's usually something deeper. And I went through this with another client of mine and I said, okay, what's stopping you here? Why do you not want to? I know you don't have the time, but I know you can make the time. She's a coach. So I was kind of like giving her own medicine. So I said to her, I know you can make the time to do this. So what's actually stopping you? And she's like, okay, yeah, you're right. And I said, is it the messaging? Like I'm scripting these for you. So is it the messaging that's kind of bothering you? She said, no, I like what you've scripted. I think it's totally on point. Okay. How are you showing up? What are you doing right before you go to create your videos? How are you setting it up? And then that's when she realized, she's like, oh, I'm not really giving myself the space to like be in the zone. And she found out that a lot of it for her was just, she felt she didn't really have the confidence to show up on video. She felt a little like weird and out of place. And so I was kind of able to kind of help coach her through that. So I usually try to drill down to, okay, what's the real reason behind not wanting to get in front of the camera, right? Is it a confidence thing? Is it an appearance thing? So something that I do for myself is I won't want to feel like creating video if I've had a bad day or if I'm really busy or if I'm running around trying to get a million things done. So I set aside my video day. And I know, okay, this is the same day every week. It's always on a Thursday. I record my videos. And so I set my day up for success, knowing that the biggest thing I need to accomplish that day is my videos. So I will do whatever is required for me to do to be in that headspace, and I make it a little bit of a me day. So I'll pamper myself a little bit in the morning. Maybe I'll exercise and get really pumped up and just like get in the zone and do some really great fun things that kind of get me feeling really good. So that's kind of the barriers that we're trying to overcome. Getting to the bottom of that first, I think, is really important. And then realizing, okay, what are the systems to support that? Because you could have a great system set up, time blocking, habit stacking, all those fun things. But if there's a bigger reason why all the systems in the world aren't going to make you do it because there's a bigger reason there. So once you kind of get those kind of barriers out of the way, then you're able to say, okay, what's the best system for me to do this? Okay, I've overcome all the barriers. I'm confident. I'm ready to do this thing. What's the best system for me? So I found a really easy way is I plan my content on one day, I film it on the second day, and then I edit everything together on the third day. Chunking it out makes it a little less cumbersome for me. I only have to do little bits of time here and there. Maybe it's an hour each day instead of taking an entire afternoon. And then having that plan makes it so when I sit down to record something, it's super efficient because I've already planned it out. I've written the script. I've got the idea, and it's just a sit down, record. I'm going to be in this area here. I'm going to change my angle here. I'm going to change this outfit or whatever. You plan it all out so that when you go to record, it's the most efficient you can possibly be. So having that plan, and again, why something like Airtable or Asana is so great, because I put that plan right in Airtable, and then I've got that up on my computer, and it's like, okay, this is the first one I'm recording. This is the script. And as soon as it's done, then I change the status to, okay, it's ready to be edited. So I know the next day when I'm going in, which ones are going to be edited. I go into CapCut, I do my thing, and it's done. So having those systems to kind of break it up, I found really beneficial. Other people find it effective to do it in one day. Sometimes it's just easier if they can just block their entire schedule off for an entire afternoon and do it that way. But it's really about finding out, again, tapping into what works best for you, how your brain works, and how you respond to the demands of creating content, right? If sometimes it's just too much to do it all in one day. So if you give yourself that little bit of leeway, then it can be a little bit easier to create it.
Okay. We've talked a lot about the creation of content for social media, but obviously social media is supposed to be more of an engaging way of conversing with people. So what are some tips or tactics that you're talking to your clients about getting that engagement from people, the likes, the comments, the shares? And on top of that, once we start getting them, what kind of approach should we have in terms of responding to people who leave comments or share our content?
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to the different kind of tips and tricks for engaging content, again, you can get really granular and talk about, hooks and your enticing graphics and what's really going to capture attention. And of course, those are really important. But at the end of the day, when you know your target audience really well and you can speak directly to their pain points, then you're going to be able to hook them a lot easier, right? So that's really what it comes down to, I find, is the best way to really create that engaging content is knowing what makes your audience go, oh, yeah. Or, oh my God, I get that. I need that. Or I can totally relate to that. Or whatever, you're relating to them on that personal level. And that's what I have found has been working lately for really getting engagement up. I will say as well, I have noticed more and more in certain industries, so far in the coaching industry, that there are more people who I call are lurkers. They're lurker followers, where they don't engage publicly with the content, but they will private DM my client, or they will share the content in private Facebook groups. So we've had to shift our strategy a little bit because it was we wanted to boost engagement. We wanted more comments. We wanted more likes. And then we realized this isn't happening. I'm like, why is this not happening? You know your target audience perfectly. Like, we are nailing the content perfectly. We know that the message is there. And so then we had to drill down a little bit deeper. And then she was starting to get all of this feedback from people she was sharing with me. She'd have screenshots and private Facebook groups and conversations that other people were having in their DMs about her content. So then we shifted and it's like, okay, engagement isn't what we need to go after because she's full of lurker followers who just take the look, share privately, but they don't want to comment for whatever reason. We think it's just because it's a little bit more vulnerable kind of content we're putting out there, which is fine. So now we're focusing on more, okay, now impressions and reach are maybe the metrics that we're going after. But for a lot of people, that engagement is what's really key. So having that relatable type content that makes your audience laugh or say, yeah, that person really gets me, something that's really speaks directly kind of to what they're going through, I find is really, really effective. I just had a client of mine. We have a meme that has been going viral on her account for weeks now. And it's just this really simple, but it made people laugh. And it's just hitting the funny bone for her target audience. But again, we needed to know what it was that would make them laugh, what it is that they would relate to make that happen. So again, when we have the system like Airtable or Asana, we're keeping track of all of those things. So we're looking at, okay, what are the things that are hitting the mark? And we will mark that down. So there's a way that you can tag it in Airtable or Asana to say, okay, this was a top performing post. So we know, okay, there's elements in this post that we need to repurpose. We need to do it again. And so we keep track of those and they go in a separate section. So then we know what we need to keep going after. And then it's a constant kind of testing game on social media, right? You know this. It's like what works one month may not work the next month. So you just kind of keep iterating and keep trying it. But when you're able to kind of track those things and then have the system that measures it, so you can easily just go in, I open the tab and say, okay, these are all the top performing posts. These are the ones that we're going to repurpose and do again because we really hit the mark on it. So when you're able to kind of have that set up, then it's a lot easier to track it and then recreate that success over and over again.
Autumn, one of the first things you talked about was leads, and organic social is notoriously tough to generate leads, depending on the industry, or even to get people to visit your website, because very often the platforms don't want to lose traffic. So they de-emphasize posts that might include links. So, and then Instagram, unless you're doing ads, you only have one link and that's in your bio. So what are some of the ways that you're working with your clients to get people off of the social media sites and into their email inboxes or website or pick up the phone?
I'm finding that DMs are a really effective format right now, and that seems to be across the board. Instagram's performing, or Meta's reporting that across the board too. When you're able to get people in the DMs, they're more likely to convert. So we've been using automations like ManyChat. There's a lot of other AI bots out there as well. So setting up those automations, so when people comment a specific word, we're directly into their DMs, sending them the information. And we're doing that both Facebook and Instagram, and it's working well on both. Some clients doesn't really work that well on Facebook, but it works really well on Instagram. So again, it's just a matter of kind of testing it out for each one. But I found because that's easy for people, it's just a simple comment. It's one word. It's very quick and easy. And then it's immediately in their messages or in their DMs, they can pop it open. And then that allows you to have multiple follow-ups. And then ManyChat and all the other AI bots out there will have opportunities for you to tag people. So you know, oh, okay, they were interested in this topic. So you tag them that, and then you're able to follow up with them. And then you can set up an entire sequence. And then you can deliver if it's a freebie, you can deliver it straight in those DMs, or you can sync it up with ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or whatever it is that you're using for your emails, sync it up and add them into your email list that way, right? So there's a whole kind of system that you can work that way. But it's really effective because you can actually then pull your sales team into it as well, because then ManyChat keeps all of those contents or contacts. So then you've got, okay, all the people who clicked on for this specific webinar, they clicked this webinar, let's say. So now we know these were all the people. So now we can go in and follow up with them again and say, hey, we know you attended that webinar last month, whatever it was, a week ago, whatever. What did you think of it? And then you start the conversation. Then it's almost like a sales call, but it's super casual because it's in the DMs. So it's just a natural kind of conversation. So it just adds a little bit of a more of a personal element. Again, like the more personal you can get, I think the better, because it just removes, I think, a little bit of that pressure. So we found some really good success in getting some conversion rates from when we get people into the DMs. And then we're starting to expand and say, okay, then what's the customer journey from there? And then how can we pull them along that customer journey even more to then not only stop at just the freebie delivery, but then it's like, okay, well, then how do we get them into maybe something else? Then we get them into maybe a low ticket item that we've got. And then how do we get them into our membership? Then how do we, then we're looking at the entire customer journey. So you can take people through that journey in the DMs, right? And so you're not really yet taking them off the platform. But even if you did want to, again, it's a lot easier once you're in the DMs. You just, deliver the link and say, hey, here's the thing that you were asking for. And then it's right there. And we know, like on Instagram, it just kind of pops up as a slider. It's not fully opening up a new window even. So it still kind of is a little bit easier for them. So I found that to be a very effective method. And if people I've got one client right now who has a very active Facebook page, and external links on her Facebook posts are still performing really well. I was shocked, but her page has been around for a very long time. So I think if like older pages, man, those people that originally got in on Facebook pages at the get-go I feel like they're just laughing right now because they've built up that audience and they've primed them really well. So
interesting.
We're not all that lucky.
This is some great advice. If people want to learn more about you or your agency, where can we send them online?
Yeah, thank you. On Instagram is my main platform where I usually give out all of my good stuff. And I'm autumn.j.wilson on Instagram. You can also find me at the simplysocialmediasociety.com. That's where my kind of community hangs out, where my membership is, and where we're doing some pretty great things in there as well.
Awesome. Autumn, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it so much.
There were a lot of great tips and a lot of great tools that Autumn brought to our attention this week. And if you need any of those links or you want the full transcript or just the key takeaways, they're all available at our website, theagentsofchange.com/536. And while you're there, be sure to check out information about our upcoming conference. This is going to be our 10th annual Agents of Change Digital Marketing Conference. We've got speakers from all over the US and Canada flying into Portland, Maine. All right, a couple of them are driving, but regardless, coming to Portland, Maine to give their best advice to you on how you can grow your business online. It's a fantastic opportunity to really improve the quality of your own marketing as well as increase the leads you're getting for your business. And right now, tickets are at their lowest price. So you want to grab those tickets while we're still offering our early bird discounts. If you can't make it to Portland, Maine, although I'd love to have you here, I understand, you can also buy a virtual pass. So you can watch the entire conference. We'll have a live stream as well as all the content on demand. It's a great deal. And those tickets are also discounted right now during our early bird session. So head on over to the website, grab your tickets, and I hope to see you in Portland, Maine this October, you agent of change.
Don't miss another thrilling episode of the Agents of Change podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform.